Everybody, welcome back to another video. The last video we made, or I made and you watched, was about putting arguments into standard form and how that is a useful tool, ability for the philosopher in the task of analyzing arguments, right? So the two broad ways are, do we believe the conclusion follows from the premises, and then also, do we believe the premises to be true? So in this video, we're going to move on and look at, but very broadly, very generally, two types of arguments, inductive and deductive arguments, and then some ways which we can use to interrogate those arguments. So let's be clear first about the difference between an inductive and a deductive argument. So here we have two arguments. The top one there, premise one, all humans are mortal. Jenny is a human, therefore Jenny is mortal. And then the bottom argument, premise one, 97% of students who attend MMU are religious. Kate attends MMU, therefore Kate is religious. So do you know the difference between those two arguments? That is, which one's inductive, which one's deductive, and how, therefore, are they different? Just have a think. Okay, so I'm sure you all got to this. The top one is a deductive argument, okay? And the deductive argument is one in which the premises make the conclusion necessarily true. So if we look at this argument, the conclusion in this one that Jenny is mortal has to be true given the premises. There's no other thing that can happen. The conclusion has to be true, right? So deductive argument is one in which guarantees the truth of the conclusion. And not surprisingly, by contrast, an inductive argument is one that doesn't guarantee the truth of conclusion, but it only suggests it's true to some level of probability. Okay, so in our example here, 97% of students at MMU are religious. Kate attends MMU, therefore Kate is religious. So notice this conclusion, although likely in this case, is by no means guaranteed. She could, of course, be one of the 3% who are not religious. So deductive arguments are one in which the conclusion is guaranteed given the premises. The conclusion is necessarily true. And inductive arguments, for our purposes here, are ones in which the conclusion is not guaranteed, and we have to make a judgment as to how likely that conclusion is to be true. Let's look at inductive arguments just a little bit more. I'm going to show you three main types, and there are obviously more out there, but for our purposes, I want to at least have seen these three main types of inductive arguments. And just to clarify, when we say induction, it's the same thing as making an inference, right? As you would in the science classroom or whatever, making an inference. So inductive reasoning and inferences are basically the same thing. So the first type of inductive reasoning, inductive argument I want you to be aware of is what we call enumerative inductive reasoning. And here's an example of that. Premise one, all the baseball players I have seen wear baseball caps during a game. My conclusion, therefore, is that all baseball players wear caps during a game. So as you can see, an enumerative inductive argument is one in which a conclusion is drawn about a bigger set from observations or experience with a smaller set, right? So in this case, I've had experience with, I don't know, so many baseball players, and from that I conclude that all baseball players do this thing. And this is, really how science kind of works in many ways, right? So if you think about animals, so I might say every swan I've ever met has feathers, and therefore all swans have feathers. That is an enumerative inferential argument, okay? So it's pretty common. Second one is an analogical inferential argument, and it goes something like this. Here's an example. Premise one, penguins, I don't know why it's just so bird heavy, but anyway, penguins have feathers and beaks and wings. Falcons have feathers and beaks and wings. Falcons can fly, therefore penguins can fly, right? So an analogical inferential argument is where you use comparison between two things, right? So you notice that thing A has lots of qualities that are the same as thing B, and because thing A can do a certain thing, you infer that thing B can do that thing too. So in this case, you notice that a penguin has feathers and wings and beaks and little, they have claws, do they have flippers? But you know what I mean, feathers and beaks and wings. And you notice the falcon has those things, and you know a falcon can fly, so you infer that the penguin can fly too, right? And this example shows you how that kind of logic often can be faulty. And the last one is what we call inference to best explanation, sometimes called abduction. And this is merely looking at the available information, the evidence in front of you, and deciding which conclusion seems to make the most sense, which explanation seems to make the most sense. So here's an example. If it was a hot day and I go outside, there's a clear blue sky, I go over to the grass and the grass is wet, right? I also at that point remember, hey, I remember every day about this time, the sprinklers come on to water the grass. So I sit there and I think, why is the grass wet? It could have rained, okay? It could have been that a pack of wild dogs came through and urinated everywhere. Or it could be that the sprinklers came on and made the grass wet. And given what I know, given the evidence in front of me, I would infer that the best explanation in this case is, of course, the sprinklers came on. So abduction is using the available evidence to make a claim about what is the most reasonable, most likely explanation for something. Okay? So there are just three types of inductive reasoning: enumerative, analogical, and inference to best explanation or abduction. Let's move on now to deductive reasoning. And when we think about deductive reasoning, deductive arguments, the way we analyze them is a little bit more formal. And we want to think about the concepts of validity and soundness. Validity and soundness. And again, with lots of things we'll encounter in this course, those two words, concepts, are used in common speak in a different way than they are in philosophy. In philosophy, they have very specific meanings, right? In day-to-day talking, you probably use, well, that's a valid argument, that's a sound argument, and you might mean the same thing, which is like it's a good argument, right? But in philosophy, as we'll see, they have specific meanings. So let's look at this argument here. Premise 1, all cats can sing hymns. Premise 2, Frankie Furface is a cat. Therefore, Frankie Furface can sing hymns. Okay? That is a valid deductive argument, right? And that's peculiar when people first hear that, because clearly the argument is nonsense, because it's not true that cats can sing hymns, right? But it is a valid argument. So the question is, well, why? What makes it valid? The thing that makes it valid is that given the premises, the conclusion must be true, right? So this is a valid deductive argument. So what it means really is a successful deductive argument in the sense that the conclusion is guaranteed given the premises, okay? So a valid deductive argument is one in which the conclusion has to be true given the premises. But of course, that isn't the only thing we're after, as this example shows. Consider this as another example. Premise 1, all cats have fur. Premise 2, Frankie Furface is a cat. Therefore, Frankie Furface has fur. This is what we call a sound argument, right? So a sound argument is first a valid argument. Okay, so we've established that it's valid first. That is, the conclusion must follow from the premises. In addition, what makes this sound not just valid is that the premises are taken as true, that we believe the premises. Okay, we believe that cats have fur, we believe Frankie Furface is a cat, and therefore we say this is sound. So what we might notice is that the best deductive arguments, the ones we're going for, are sound arguments. That is, the premises demand the truth of the conclusion, and in addition, the premises are true. Okay? So we're looking for the relationship between the premises and the conclusion, firstly, that's validity. And then we're asking, well, do we believe the premises? And of course, notice that you will never find a sound argument that's not valid. That cannot be. A sound argument has to, by definition, first be valid. But you can have a valid argument that's not sound, as we saw over here, because the soundness is established by the truth of the premises. Okay, let's look at some practice questions. As always, what I want you to do is to go through these and pause the video in a minute. And in this case, what I'd like you to do is to decide in each of these 4 cases whether the argument is sound, valid, or perhaps neither. Perhaps it's neither sound nor valid. So the way to do it is to think, is it valid? That is the conclusion necessarily true? If you're saying it's valid, you're saying there's no way the conclusion could be anything than the one given. And then in addition, you're saying, are these premises true? Okay, so validity, do you believe the conclusion has to be true? And soundness is, in addition, do you believe the premises to be true? Okay, so as always, pause the video, take your time, look back over the video, look in your book, have a go, and when you've had a good crack at it, come back and I'll go over them. All right, welcome back. Let's go over these and see if you got these correct. So, and some of these are a little bit sneaky, so you may well have the concepts of validity and soundness down, even if you don't get these right, because they're, I say, a bit sneaky. But the first one, so premise 1, Jack often eats fish. Premise 2, eating even the smallest amount of fish turns your eyes pink. Therefore, Jack has pink eyes. That is a valid deductive argument. It's valid because the conclusion is guaranteed. If premise 1 and premise 2 are taken, it has to be the case that Jack has pink eyes. It is, of course, not sound because we don't believe that eating small amounts of fish turns your eyes pink. It's not true. So number 1, this one over here, this is a valid but not a sound deductive argument. Okay. Number 2, this one about the elephants. So premise 1, elephants live in Africa. Premise 2, Judy went on safari to Africa. Therefore, Judy saw an elephant. This is neither valid nor sound, right? So sometimes we think, when I've done this before, students think it's valid, but the reason it's not valid is because just because elephants live in Africa and because Judy went to Africa, it's not guaranteed she sees an elephant. There's no guarantee that is the case, right? That day the elephants could be hiding in the waterfall, or it could have been elephant holiday. No elephants were around. I don't know. Foggy day. Who knows? But the point is, there's no guarantee that she saw an elephant. So it's not valid. Because it's not valid, it can't be sound. So these premises, we might actually say, are true, right? If Judy did go to Africa, then these are true premises. But there's nothing that guarantees the truth of the conclusion, so it can't be valid, in which case it cannot be sound. Okay. Third example, premise 1, earthworms are animals. Premise 2, animals can feel pain. Premise 3, digging in the yard causes earthworms pain. Premise 4, inflicting pain is always wrong. Therefore, it is wrong to dig in your yard. That is a valid deductive argument. That is, given these 4 premises, this conclusion is guaranteed. This is the conclusion you must reach. Okay, it is inescapable that if these 4 things are true, it is wrong to dig in your yard. However, as I'm sure you all noticed, we would say this is not a sound argument because we would disagree with some, if not in fact all, well, not the first one, but certainly 2, 3, and 4, we might disagree with on some level. Okay, so therefore it's not sound. And lastly, and showing off my excellent knowledge of American sports, premise 1, New York City is in the USA. Premise 2, Boston is in the USA. Premise 3, the Red Sox are from Boston. And premise 4, the Yankees are from New York. Okay. Wait a sec, there's something missing in this one. my error. I missed and type up the therefore. The therefore is that the Red Sox and Yankees are from the USA. That should have been the conclusion. The conclusion this one should have been, therefore, the Yankees and the Red Sox are from the USA. My apologies for missing that out. And of course, therefore, this is a valid and a sound. So it's sound. It's a sound argument. That is the conclusion we have to follow. And of course, we would say that those premises are true. Again, apologize, I missed off the therefore. Okay, that concludes this video. Hope it's making sense. As always, read your book, and then there's some other videos I posted that on these issues which were helpful. And when you're ready, you have a little quiz to do. Okay.